John Harris had spent nearly a decade in a cell, surrounded by gray walls that seemed to swallow every hope he once had. Time moved differently behind bars, days felt like years, and years felt like centuries. He had long stopped thinking about the life he left outside, focusing instead on routines and small victories, a letter from his wife, Emily, a glimpse of the sky through the tiny barred window, or a conversation with a fellow inmate that reminded him he was still alive. Emily's letters had become the anchor to his sanity. Each one was filled with affection, promises, and reassurance that she would wait for him, that they would be together again, that everything would be as it had been before the arrest. He read them over and over, memorizing each word, imagining her voice, her smile, the warmth of her touch. For John, Emily was not just his wife, she was the fragile thread that connected him to the world beyond the prison walls. Then the truth arrived like a thunderclap. A visitor came with news that shattered everything he had believed. Emily was not who she claimed to be. John could hardly comprehend it at first. The letters, the promises, the intimacy, they were all built on a lie. The revelation hit him with a force that made his heart pound, his stomach turn, and his mind reel. He felt the world tilt, as though the floor beneath him had vanished. Every memory of love, trust, and loyalty seemed tainted, every dream of reunion contaminated by deceit. For the first time in years, John experienced a rage so deep, so raw, that it was almost terrifying to himself. But alongside the fury, a strange clarity began to emerge. The betrayal had torn open a wound, but it had also awakened something dormant inside him. He realized he could no longer remain passive, no longer endure the torment of lies. He needed answers. He needed confrontation. He needed justice, or at least what he perceived as justice. Prison was supposed to crush a man, but John found a peculiar kind of strength within its walls. He began observing, studying, learning. He noticed every detail, guard routines, shift changes, security gaps, the movements of fellow prisoners. Each fragment of information became a tool, a piece of a puzzle that might one day lead him out. His mind, once clouded by despair, now functioned with the precision of a machine. He visualized freedom not as a dream, but as a series of achievable steps, each one bringing him closer to the truth he so desperately sought. Sleep came rarely, and when it did, it was filled with plans, maps, and strategies. Anger had become fuel, transforming helplessness into determination. Every letter he had received from Emily, every memory of her love, every second of longing and hope, became a reminder of what had been stolen from him, and what he intended to reclaim. In the quiet, lonely hours of the night, John made a vow to himself. Him, no matter the cost. That moment of realization, born from betrayal and heartbreak, marked the beginning of a journey that would transform him entirely, a journey that would lead him from the shadows of a prison cell into a world where the lines between justice, revenge, and survival blurred into one. John Harris spent months after the revelation of Emily's deception plotting, thinking, and preparing. Prison life demanded patience, and he had learned it well. Every day became a careful exercise in observation and calculation. He noticed the smallest details, the way guards adjusted their routines, the cracks in the walls, the overlooked blind spots in cameras, even the careless conversations of other inmates. Each fragment of information was a potential advantage, a piece of the puzzle that could one day make freedom possible. He moved silently through his days, masking his emotions, appearing compliant, but beneath the surface, his mind worked tirelessly, mapping out a path no one could see. The anger that had initially consumed him transformed into focus. Rage alone would not be enough to escape, it could only burn him out. Instead, he learned to channel it, to convert it into meticulous planning. He imagined every step of the escape as if playing a game of chess, anticipating every move of the prison system as if it were an opponent he could outthink. Every misstep could be fatal. Every hesitation could end in failure. The stakes were life and death, and John thrived under pressure, sharpening his mind into a weapon as precise as a scalpel. He began to train himself physically as well, using the limited resources of the prison to build endurance and strength. Long hours in the yard, carrying heavy loads, climbing structures, and pushing his body beyond its limits were part of the routine. Every drop of sweat, every aching muscle, was a step closer to the moment when he would finally break free. The prison walls, once a symbol of his helplessness, became a training ground. John turned despair into action, and isolation into preparation. John also thought carefully about Emily. The more he contemplated the betrayal, the more he understood the necessity of confronting her. Her deception was not a minor fault, it had invaded every intimate corner of his life, poisoning trust, love, and memory. This was not only about revenge, though the desire burned within him. It was about reclaiming control, about asserting that he would not remain a victim to a life built on lies. Every plan he devised had that purpose at its center. Each night, in the darkness of his cell, John rehearsed the escape in his mind. He imagined every corridor, every lock, every obstacle. He considered what he would do once outside, how he would track Emily, and how he would finally confront the life she had hidden from him. His thoughts were never aimless, every mental rehearsal was part of the strategy. Time, which had once felt like an endless burden, now worked in his favor. The longer he waited, the more he understood the patterns of the prison, the more confident he became in his abilities. By the end of the months, John's transformation was complete. The man who had arrived in prison, broken and disillusioned, no longer existed. In his place stood someone resolute, focused, and unflinching. The fire of betrayal had become a cold, sharp instrument of precision. He was ready. Ready to leave the walls behind, ready to face the truth, and ready to take control of a life that had been stolen from him. The plan was no longer a dream, it was a blueprint, etched in his mind, awaiting only the moment of execution. The night of the escape arrived quietly, almost unremarkably, as if the world itself was holding its breath. John Harris had waited for this moment for months, and every second of preparation now demanded absolute precision. He moved through the shadows of the prison with a calm that masked the storm inside him. His heartbeat was steady, his mind clear. Every step had been rehearsed countless times in his head, every detail memorized, the timing of the guards, the flicker of the cameras, the weak points in the fences, the hidden paths that led to freedom. He avoided the corridors where lights flickered or guards lingered longer than usual. He slipped past fellow inmates without alerting them, his body pressed against walls, senses heightened to every sound. The weight of years spent behind bars felt heavier than ever, but it also propelled him forward. Every stride was a declaration: he would not remain confined, he would not allow deceit and betrayal to cage him any longer. Months of planning had led to this, and failure was not an option. As he reached the outer perimeter, John's breath caught for only a moment. The fence loomed before him, cold metal under the moonlight, its shadow stretching across the ground like a barrier to destiny itself. But he had anticipated this. Years of observation had taught him the patterns, the weak points, the areas where surveillance lapsed. He moved quickly, with practiced efficiency, cutting through wires, climbing, dropping silently. Every motion was deliberate, precise, a testament to the countless hours he had spent preparing for this exact moment. Freedom hit him like a wave as he stepped beyond the fence, the open air filling his lungs with a mixture of relief and exhilaration. For the first time in years, he was outside the walls that had tried to contain him, outside the life that had betrayed him, and closer than ever to confronting the truth. His mind raced not with fear, but with determination. Each step carried him away from prison and toward the confrontation that had become the center of his existence. The years of isolation, the betrayal, the meticulous preparation, they all converged into this moment of liberation. Owen moved through the night like a shadow, careful to leave no trace. He knew the authorities would be alerted soon, but he relied on his planning, his patience, and his ability to remain calm under pressure. Every turn, every alley, every hidden path he took was a thread in the web he had spun for months. He imagined Emily, the lies, the deception, and the confrontation that awaited. That thought fueled him, sharp and relentless, propelling him forward with single-minded intensity. By dawn, he had reached the outskirts of the town where Emily had hidden. The world around him seemed eerily quiet, almost anticipating what was to come. He paused for only a moment to center himself, to remember why he had endured years behind bars, months of careful observation, and the storm of betrayal that had ignited him. The prison was behind him, freedom was at his feet, and the final phase of his journey, the confrontation, was now inevitable. Every ounce of preparation, every sleepless night, every drop of determination had led to this. John Harris was no longer a prisoner. He was a force moving toward the truth, unstoppable and unrelenting, ready to face the life that had deceived him. John Harris moved silently through the quiet streets of the town, each step deliberate, every sense alert. The sun had barely begun to rise, casting long shadows that blended with the darkness of his thoughts. Months of preparation, years of betrayal, and a lifetime of confinement had led him to this precise moment. Emily, or the person he had loved and trusted, was close, hiding in plain sight, unaware that John had returned to claim the answers he demanded. The air felt heavy, charged with anticipation, as though the world itself sensed the collision that was about to occur. He remembered every detail of the letters, every memory of shared moments, every promise he had once believed in. Each recollection was now a weapon in his mind, sharpening his resolve, reminding him of what had been stolen. The deception had been more than a lie, it had been an entire life built on manipulation and falsehoods. John's pulse did not quicken with fear but with a precise, controlled intensity. He knew that hesitation could ruin everything. He had come too far, prepared too meticulously, to falter now. When he finally saw her, the shock of recognition struck him for a split second, but it was nothing compared to the storm of emotion that followed. Every feeling, betrayal, anger, hurt, and a dark sense of justice, fused together, forming a force that had been growing inside him for years. He observed her carefully, noting every movement, every instinct that had guided him so far. In that moment, he realized how profoundly the lie had shaped his life. All the love, all the longing, all the hope, it had been a mirage, and now he stood at the threshold of truth. The confrontation was swift, brutal, and final. There was no hesitation, no turning back. Every motion, every calculated step, had been rehearsed mentally countless times. The emotional intensity that had been building over the years erupted in a controlled, unyielding force. What had once been love became a weapon, a tool of reckoning, and the moment of deception reached its inevitable conclusion. It was a collision of human emotions at their rawest: betrayal, rage, grief, and a relentless drive for resolution. John moved with precision, his actions the culmination of years of preparation, observation, and emotional intensity. As the final moments passed, John stood amidst the consequences of his journey. The life that had deceived him lay shattered, and he felt a grim sense of closure wash over him. The act was irreversible, shocking in its intensity, yet it brought with it a clarity he had not felt in years. He was no longer the man confined behind prison walls, tormented by lies. He was the man who had reclaimed his agency, confronted the falsehoods, and executed the plan he had spent years perfecting. Even as sirens began to echo in the distance, John moved with calm, deliberate steps. The confrontation was over, and in its wake, a profound understanding of his own resilience emerged. He had faced the ultimate betrayal and survived not just physically, but mentally. The world could judge his actions, question morality, or condemn his choices, but John Harris had discovered something far deeper: the sheer, unyielding force of human determination and the lengths to which it could carry a person when pushed to the edge. The story of betrayal and revenge had reached its climax, leaving behind a haunting but undeniable testament to the power of preparation, focus, and unrelenting resolve. The aftermath of what John Harris had done spread quickly, igniting a storm of attention that swept through the town and beyond. Newspapers, television reports, and online articles dissected every detail of the escape and the confrontation, portraying it as a shocking tale of betrayal, revenge, and survival. John had anticipated scrutiny, but the attention did little to disturb him. He had expected judgment, anger, and fear, but none of that could shake the clarity that had come with action. The prison walls, the lies, and the years of confinement were behind him. What remained was a man who had discovered the limits, and the possibilities, of his own resolve. The world responded in polarized ways. Some condemned him outright, horrified by the violence and the irreversible consequences of his actions. Others were fascinated, drawn to the raw intensity of his story, the precision of his planning, and the unwavering focus he had displayed under circumstances that would have broken almost anyone. Headlines framed him alternately as a criminal, a victim, a master of strategy, and a symbol of human determination. But John felt none of these labels mattered. He understood his own journey in a way no outsider could. What mattered was the proof he had given himself, that he could survive, adapt, and act decisively when the world had tried to cage him, both physically and emotionally. In quiet moments, John reflected on the chain of events that had brought him here. He thought about the life that had been stolen from him, the deception that had festered for years, and the painstaking preparation that had made escape possible. He thought about the months spent watching, calculating, and training, and realized that the process had changed him as profoundly as the act itself. Where once there had been anger, confusion, and despair, there was now clarity and confidence. He had discovered a core within himself, a force that demanded action and refused to accept helplessness. That discovery was both terrifying and empowering. The story became a cautionary tale for others, a reminder that even in circumstances designed to strip a person of control, the human mind will find ways to reclaim power. John's journey was not one of morality or virtue, it was a study in focus, planning, and the extreme lengths to which someone can go when pushed to the edge. It revealed the paradox of human resilience, that strength can emerge from the darkest experiences, and clarity can arise from the most devastating betrayals. It also posed difficult questions about justice, vengeance, and the consequences of taking control of one's own narrative in a world where truth is fragile and trust is rare. As time passed, John faded from public view, leaving behind a story that continued to provoke fascination, fear, and debate. What remained was a testament to human potential, raw and unfiltered. He had endured confinement, betrayal, and isolation, and in doing so, had discovered something profound about himself. The prison walls had tried to contain him, lies had tried to blind him, but in the end, he had emerged as a force of will and focus unlike any other. The world remembered the crime, but John remembered the revelation, that even in despair, the human spirit has an unyielding capacity to rise, adapt, and take control of its destiny.